good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us and engaging with New York Law School. My name is May Estrada. I am the Associate Dean and Vice President for Enrollment Management, Student Financial Services, and Institutional Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And joining me today are members of the admissions team, and they will introduce themselves to you, starting with Dean Coughlin.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us today. My name is Ed Coughlin. As Dean Estrada said, I'm the Assistant Dean of Admissions. I've been in the office now for coming up on 10 years and at New York Law School for over 14. So thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to sharing our information with you today. Take it away, Brian.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Kazuba, Director of Admissions here at New York Law School, and I'm also an NYLS alum from back in 2004, 20 years ago. A little dated, but I was a prodigy. So, Rebecca, your turn.
Hi, everyone. I am Rebecca Cushman. I'm an admissions advisor here at New York Law School. I am the newest member of the team, almost at a year now. So it's great to see you all today. We're excited to be here. And Dean Estrada, I will turn it back to you.
Great, thank you. Okay, so before we give you the overview of the admissions process, I just wanted to share some ground rules, okay? We will be discussing many aspects of the application process, such as the timeline, personal statement, letters of recommendation, resume, optional statement, the CAS report, etc. So we ask that you pay close attention as we navigate our way through each of those topics. You are welcome to ask your questions down below in the Q&A, but before you do, please make sure you just wait until we get to that portion. And that way we are carefully addressing every aspect, and we recognize that 1 hour is not enough time to discuss every single topic. So to that end, this is just an overview. You should have received an invitation that included additional segments of the application, starting with taking a deeper dive in how to write your personal statement. And I believe that is on September 12th, if I'm not mistaken, but you will receive reminders. And so we invite you to continue to engage with us and ask those questions accordingly. And there will be some questions that we will answer directly in the Q&A section, and there will be questions that we answer live. The goal for this is to inform you as best as we can, but we also want to draw your attention to the presentations and not necessarily glued to the chat. So with that, I'm just going to give a quick overview about the application process. The application will open the second week in September, and our deadline is June 30th. Our application is free. You must submit your application through the Law School Admission Council, and that is essentially what we call the motherboard of all of the application processes and application and data collection. So it would be great if you haven't done so already to open a Law School Admission Council account and include that you want to be notified of any communications that law schools will send. But that is essentially the first step. Again, second week in September through June 30th, application is free. As you begin the application process, I want to draw to your attention the ABA, which is the American Bar Association 509 report. It is a consumer report that allows you to understand the law school that you are applying to and compare that from apples to apples. Included in the ABA 509 report includes the number of applications, number of acceptances, number of matriculated students, scholarship information, distribution of faculty members, distribution of ethnicity. It is a really great source of documentation or document rather to collect pertinent information that will help inform you about each law school you are applying to. Take note, if you are applying for the fall of 2025, that consumer information will not be available until January of 2025. The ABA will collect that data, analyze it, starting in October, and then they will post that at the end of December, making it available to the public in early January. The second thing I'd like to say is that if you haven't already done so, it may be in your best interest to start an Excel sheet. Why? The Excel sheet will give you a snapshot of everything that may be important to you and give you quick links and quick access. So for example, column A should include all of the law schools that you are applying to. Columns B through C, D, E, F, or even Z will describe the various characteristics, components, and deadline of that particular institution. So you need to do some reflection. What is important to you? Application fee, perhaps, deadlines, median LSAT GPA, things of that sort. You want to make sure that you are capturing all of that on a spreadsheet, which will give you very easy access when you are looking at the various law schools. Third thing, it is critical to remember that you need to follow directions. You need to read every question. You need to answer every single question. There is not a one-size-fits-all model. That is true for both the application, the personal statement, and any other requirements. And we'll take a deeper dive into what those components are. Moving along, so once you've completed your application, you can hit submit. For New York Law School, we will not review an application unless it is complete. What does complete mean? You have an application. You have at least one LSAT score. You have your personal statement, your resume, letters of recommendation, writing sample, transcripts, and I believe I did say one letter of recommendation. So that constitutes a complete application. And once that is all submitted and received and assessed by the Law School Admission Council, they will transmit that information to the law school. We will begin our application review process in October. Admissions is rolling, and it will go through pretty much the summer. You will receive a decision via email. That is the only way we will communicate the decision, as well as the status checker in your LSAC account. So with that, I want to turn it over to Dean Coughlin to address the personal statement, and then we can move forward with the other components.
Thank you very much, Dean Estrada. I appreciate that. The personal statement, you will notice on all of your law school applications, is a required component. As Dean Estrada mentioned, we very much, all law schools, appreciate your reading and following the instructions. That goes for, of course, every component of your law school application, and perhaps particularly for your personal statement, as such an important part of your application will be construed very carefully by each admissions committee at the law schools to which you're applying. This is your opportunity in your personal statement to separate yourself from thousands of other applicants to that law school. You are given this chance to become not merely numbers and letters on a page any longer. You are not just your transcripts, and you're not just your LSAT scores, very important elements of the application, of course, but you are an actual flesh and blood human being with this chance to get an admissions committee to feel like they know you, a little bit and can start imagining you as one of their students. You can remind yourself by the two words in the title what you should be paying attention to. It is a personal statement. As far as a statement goes, this is your chance to show an admissions committee that you are capable of writing clearly and concisely in the parameters that are instructed to you, whether that be a page limit or a word count, font types, font sizes. Different law schools will have different requirements. We will first notice, are you following those instructions? If there is a prompt, you must answer the prompt. New York Law School, we keep it rather open for you. We want to hear your story. We want to see what you've chosen is most important to convey to us. As far as that statement and great writing sample goes, I would be looking for 0 mistakes of spelling, grammar, syntax, punctuation, capitalization. It should be the cleanest, most professional looking document you can produce, wanting to put your best foot forward to the admissions committee. For the personal side of it, this is your chance to share with us, after reflecting on the occasion, the course, the experience, the relationship that you've had that began as the germination for you to decide that for you to accomplish what you wish in life, for you to fulfill your potential, is by getting a law degree. Try and do sufficient self-reflection such that you really answer that why for yourself, so you're able to convey it to us in that personal statement, because that will be your story and no one else's. That will be your taking advantage of this opportunity to separate yourself from everybody else by sharing that which is most important to you. There is no magic bullet. We are not looking for any kind of mythical right answer. There is none. We want to hear about what is important to you. You cannot afford to be superficial. It is not enough to merely recapitulate what's on your resume. It is not enough to just say, I always wanted to go to law school, without explaining why that has consistently been so important to you that you are now willing to undertake the investment of time and energy and money to actually attend law school. So don't be easy on yourselves. Keep asking yourselves, why do I want to do this? Why is this so important to me? And then going through a process of drafting and redrafting, you will coalesce that answer into the best possible statement that is personal that you can convey to us. You should probably find somebody in your life, perhaps an advisor at school, if you are still in school or in touch with them, or someone in your professional life whom you trust. And I'm not suggesting that you ask 6 people. You'll get too much input, but someone should be able to give you a proofread on top of what you are doing yourself. Not to help you with the content, that's yours. That's your story. But merely to be looking over the document for any glaring errors that your eyes have glossed over, because after a while, your eyes will start seeing what they want to see. So it's okay to ask somebody else to look at your document, just to make sure you've not missed a punctuation or a word choice. But after that, go through that drafting, go through that redrafting, so that you feel it is you're putting your best writing possible forward. Do not rely on artificial intelligence. It will not be your friend. We are very well versed at this point of reading things that are AI generated. There is a certain quality to them. There's a certain sound of that voice that will not help you separate yourself from other people. If anything, it would call into question whether or not a document you've submitted is entirely your own work. That is where we're starting from. So please do not provide any evidence to the contrary. There are a lot of ways to use AI to get you started. or to proofread. But if you're not expert in those, do not rely on those. This should be your work product, 100%, what you have generated, so that you resonate with an admissions committee as the applicant you are and no one else. I'm happy to take questions on this. We'll be getting to those towards the end of this hour, but now I'm going to hand it over to Brian to discuss resumes.
Thank you, Dean Coughlin. And yet again, feel free to use the Q&A function to enter your question, and we will definitely get to all of them. So let's talk a little about resumes. As Dean Coughlin said, you don't want to use your personal statement to recapitulate your resume. And that's why resume is super important, because you want to use that opportunity to get everything out that you don't necessarily have time to go into full detail in your personal statement, because that you want to really refine and keep, on a clear one message. So first thing is, don't worry too much about having an overly, legal type resume. Once you get to law school, you're going to have plenty of opportunity, plenty of help and resources to work on crafting a good, strong legal resume that will benefit you for your internships and as you progress during your law school and legal career. First and foremost, always do reverse chronological order. So anything that's most recent should be the top of that resume, and so on and so forth. Don't worry too much about your overall length, but at the same time, you still want to do your best to keep things as fairly clear and concise as possible. That's going to be the name of the game as you go through law school and beyond. So anywhere where you have an opportunity to write, you're going to want to do that. Make sure you're proofreading, because as the committee's looking, they're going to notice, little mistakes here and there, and that is going to, stick with them. So not just your personal statement, but everything that you're submitting, make sure is proofread. Keep it as professional looking as possible. Again, you're looking to embark on a career in law, not necessarily creative writing or graphic design. So, do not focus on pictures or font color or emojis or something like that. You want to keep it looking professional. Have it be inclusive of all your experience. Don't worry too much, particularly if you don't have necessarily legal experience or paralegal experience, but we want to see, experience in general. As you're going to law school, committee's looking for several things, how you're doing in a classroom, but how you've done and managed, in a working environment. Have you demonstrated that you've been able to apply for jobs, do well enough on interviews to be able to get those jobs, and maintain those jobs. So we're going to want to see that you have, some sort of working experience, no matter what that experience is. If you're working during school, we want to see, how many hours you're working. Again, a lot about law school is about balancing. You're not just going to be spending time in a classroom, but you're going to be in a classroom. You're going to be doing internships. You're going to be doing clinics. You're going to have to balance different things. So we're going to see, while you're getting those GPAs in undergrad, were you just in class, or were you also balancing by potentially having a part-time job on the side? We're going to want to see that you're able to do that, because that's a very big part of what you're going to be doing throughout your law school career. When talking about education, at this point, for the most part, you want to leave off your high school, background and off of your resume, unless you started something during your high school years that you're continually to do going forward. For the most part, now we're just focusing on undergrad and beyond. List all your honors and activities. List everything there. Again, we want to see how involved you were while in school, so that your transcripts are such, but you're also doing these activities, you're also doing these jobs. We want to see everything that you're doing, because again, so much of law school, we have 30 different student organizations, 26 different legal clinics, internships, externships. So we want to see that you're going to be able to potentially do a wide range of these activities while on campus and still be able to maintain a high academic, standard. And then when it comes to interest, we talk about, a lot of resumes focus on, putting their hobbies, interests, and skills. that's important. Again, such as with a, personal statement, we want to get to know you, the person, not just have this, facts and figures, but really get to know who you are. In terms of skills, don't put something that's, obvious that everyone at this point should have. Don't say you're good at Microsoft Office. At this point, everyone should be really proficient in Word. Show that you advanced skill that you might have that may not, that others may not have. In terms of hobbies and interest, don't keep it overly broad. If you are an avid reader, talk about that you've read all 9 Harry Potter books, or or read the entire expanded Star Wars universe. Talk about something interesting, because again, now the committee is looking at this, and now it's past just whether they think you're a potentially good law student, but we're looking to admit students that are going to be our colleagues on campus for the next 3 to 4 years, and colleagues well beyond that as they enter alum. So we want people who, we're interested in. And then therefore, we're going to look to get to know you. And, if you do get a chance to meet us, those are the questions like, oh, I really want to meet this person. I want to know, more about what they're doing. So get specific. Don't just say you're necessarily a runner, but say that you've run, 3 half marathons and such. Talk more specifically about what your interests are, because that's going to, again, the humanistic quality does definitely play. And finally, as you're putting your resume together, think strategically about, talking about things that might be sort of controversial issues, religion, politics, to specifically, where again, the committee is not necessarily going to be prejudiced on anything like that, but you want to sort of just keep it simply broad and open, and not too overly specific and get into something that's too controversial. And with that, I will pass it along. Are there any questions?
Actually, there is, Brian. Maybe you can just talk about this just a little bit. There were a number of questions pertaining to including your personal interest on the resume, if that is a good idea, whether that should be spelt out, bullet points, a list, etc.
Yeah, I think space is important. So you don't want to go too deep, but you can do bullet points of, again, a little bit more detail rather than just reading, but you're an avid reader and an example of something you read, or being more specific, like I said, is in terms of, whether you're interested in running and what's that may be, or, if you played sports, what did you play, or, anything like that. So be a little bit specific, but still try to be concise as you can.
Thank you. Okay, why don't we go ahead and move forward with Rebecca, who will talk about optional statements.
Hi, everyone. So a little bit about the additional things that often go under the category of things that you can add to your resume, but you don't necessarily have to. And some of that is a matter of what your personal circumstances are and whether you have more to elaborate on whatever that topic may be. So first thing I want to address is one of the things that is a little bit unique about applying to a law school is that there is a section on the application called Character and Fitness. And this section is going to ask you to answer a series of questions about whether you have ever faced anything related to academic discipline, academic probation, as well as anything related to criminal issues, criminal charges that you've faced in the past. Oftentimes there are questions about what is the correct way to sort of approach if you do answer yes to one of these questions. How do I sort of explain to the admissions committee what I did, what the outcome was? So what we ask is that if you do answer yes to any of the questions, you submit an additional statement or an addendum, basically saying in your own words what happened. So if you had involvement in the criminal system, we ask that we don't just want, for example, a copy of a police report. We want to know in your own words what happened, what were the circumstances, and what was the outcome. And in this case, you are also more than welcome to sort of share your perspective on what happened, perhaps what you've learned from it, and perhaps how things have been different since. One side note that I always like to add in regard to the character and fitness section is that it is always best to err on the side of disclosure. A minor indiscretion that took place when you were 15 or 16 years old is likely not going to be a disqualifier for law school. Dishonesty, however, is a more serious thing. And ultimately, if you are admitted to law school, we want to see that you have disclosed whatever may have happened in the past, that you're answering honestly, and ultimately that when you apply to the bar one day and they ask you as well for any character and fitness things that have happened in the past, you want to be sure that you have disclosed the same thing to the bar that you did when you were originally applying to law school. Another piece of information that you may want to include, and this is again, now we're moving on from the character and fitness section, but additional addenda that can be included. One of those is a diversity statement. Now, the diversity statement, again, is optional. It's up to you whether you do want to include it. The diversity statement is different from your personal statement in that it is sort of your chance to tell us about your background. What are the perspectives that you've developed, challenges faced, lessons learned because of your background, because of lived experiences, whatever it is that you think has sort of shaped who you are today, tell us that. Tell us perhaps why that is, relevant to your journey to law school, perhaps. And so that is a space for you to share what you wish to share. Again, I would just emphasize it doesn't need to be, multiple pages long. I would say less than a page. And we just ask that, any additional addendum that are submitted are different from what's included in your personal statement. Finally, some other reasons you might include an addendum. Two main ones that come to mind are if there is an anomaly on your transcript, for example, you were a straight A student for, 5 semesters straight, and then you had a semester where you were just barely passing your classes. That's something that would stick out to an admissions committee and think, why is there this difference? Why does this seem different? An addendum is a perfect place to sort of explain what caused that anomaly. Was there something going on in your life that caused that change, that sort of drastic change on your transcript? The other thing that jumps out to me that you may want to include an addendum about is your LSAT scores. Oftentimes students will submit multiple LSAT scores and we'll see a 1, 2, 3 point either increase or decrease. If you took your first LSAT, you scored a 145, and then the next LSAT you scored a 160, that is a huge difference. And we want to know, what are the details behind that difference? Did something happen on the first time? Did you, not study the first time, but then you enrolled in a course and that led to the point increase? Whatever it might be, that's your opportunity to sort of explain those things that don't necessarily always seem obvious without an explanation. And the very last thing I will say, and then I'll turn it back to my colleagues, is that whenever you're writing an addendum, even if it's about a topic that is sort of quote unquote a negative topic, focus on the positive, right? Don't spend your entire addendum talking about how you're not a good test taker, you've never been able to take a test. We want to know the things about you that are going to make you successful. Of course, there are things that you want to explain. Put it in a positive light. What are you going to do to make sure that you are successful in law school, and moving forward? So that is my best advice. Again, as my colleague said, more than happy to take any questions. Take a look at the Q&A.
Just really quick, thank you for that, Rebecca. I do want to just add a little bit of a clarification on the diversity statement. Oftentimes, and I've been doing this for 23 years, I've seen applicants mistake adversity for diversity, and that is not the case. So just be mindful when choosing to submit an optional diversity statement that you are not necessarily mistaking adversity as the diversity, because a lot of the applicants have gone through some sort of challenge throughout life and have overcome that. So just be mindful of that. And the other thing I will add about the character and fitness, in particular when it comes to criminal convictions, there may be instances where you are working with a family friend, a coworker who is an attorney, and they are reading the question for what it is. And they may say, well, that is expunged, therefore there is no need for you to disclose that. Our application, and most schools will say, including anything that has been expunged. So you need to follow the directions on the application and make sure that you disclose that piece of information. Okay, I think, are we ready to move on to the credential assembly services? Any other questions pertaining optional statements in the Q&A?
Thank you, Dean Estrada. I do see one question, and perhaps I'll turn it back to you for your thoughts. But a number of folks are asking whether an addendum would be appropriate if they've canceled an LSAT score.
Sure, great question. One cancellation, perhaps not. But if you have a cancellation, a low score, a high score, multiple LSATs, then you might want to add some color and explanation around those circumstances. The one thing you don't want is anytime there is a pause or a gap in your application, the admissions committee is notorious for making things up. And so in order to avoid that, you want to make sure that you've explained thoroughly what occurred. One cancellation, no. Same thing with your transcripts. One withdrawal on your transcripts, probably not a big deal. Multiple withdrawals, multiple cancellations, multiple tests. It would be in your best interest to describe the circumstances around that.
Thank you, Dean Estrada. I'm also seeing, and I believe we're going to get to this in the next segment, some questions about letters of recommendation.
Great. Let me just briefly describe the Credential Assembly Services, and I will turn it back to Dean Coughlin to talk about the letters of recommendation. So in addition to your application and the supporting materials, we also require a Credential Assembly Services report. That is short for, or CAS is the acronym for that report. And it is a crucial component of your law school application. When applying to law schools through LSAC, the CAS report generally compiles all your essential application materials into one single report. And that report is then sent to every law school that you are applying to. The CAS report generally includes your writing sample, the writing sample that is taken as part of your LSAT test, your transcripts, all of your undergraduate transcripts, and if you attended graduate school, it will also include that. Any summer abroad programs where you earn credit or a letter grade must be included. If you attended a community college, if you transferred from one institution to the other, we will require that you submit all of those transcripts to the Law School Admission Council for an evaluation. So to that end, the report will include both your cumulative GPA as well as your degree summary. It will also differ slightly from your school reported GPA. So for example, if you asked for a copy of your unofficial transcripts from your undergraduate institution, and you've attended numerous colleges, summer abroad programs, withdrew, retook your classes or a course, those will be recalculated by the Law School Admission Council, and therefore that GPA may differ slightly from what you are looking at on your unofficial transcript. The LSAT score or scores will also be included in this CAS report. That includes if you were absent, if you canceled, what the high was, what the low was. Most law schools will take the high LSAT reported, but if you've taken the LSAT 3 or more times, the average becomes more telling in terms of predicting success in law school. The CAS report will also include the letter of recommendation, which Dean Coughlin will address shortly. And more importantly, the cover sheet has a number of data points that is important for the admissions committee, such as how many A's, B's, C's, D's, and F's you received in undergrad. There will be a summary for that. If you attended an undergraduate institution who sent 50 or more graduates to law school, they will share that information and how you performed in comparison to those applicants. It'll show demographic information, and it will show us your trajectory from your freshman year all the way through your senior year. And again, it'll show us 2 data points when it comes to your GPA, your cumulative GPA, as well as your degree summary. And so in short, the CAS report is just really a nicely streamlined document that the admissions committee will rely heavily on. Any questions on that before we move over to the letters of recommendation in the chat or Q&A?
There's one in the Q&A, Dean Estrada, that reads, if we have one unofficial transcript from one undergraduate institution, can we assume that the CAS summary number will be the same as our cumulative GPA?
No. LSAC will only calculate and assess and evaluate all official transcripts submitted directly to them.
The second part of the question is, which is valued more by law schools during the admissions process?
In terms of the GPA?
It doesn't specify, but I think this person may be discussing what is, of all the elements of the application, valued most.
There is no weight assessed for each component. It is a holistic review. It is the applicant's job and responsibility to ensure that when submitting their application, that they are connecting the dots, that pieces of the application fit nicely, that it is concise, and that they are advocating for themselves.
Will the CAS GPA be lower or higher than the transcript GPA?
It depends. From years of experience, it's slightly lower, but there are instances where I've seen it to become higher, especially when there are pluses included.
Is the CAS report something we can access and see prior to submitting it to the school?
It is something that you have to work directly with LSAC, but generally speaking, you are waiving the rights to your CAS report as with your letters of recommendation.
Between the GPA and the summary report, which one is valued more by admissions?
Both. We look at the overall GPA, right, as how did you do from a holistic perspective, but we also recognize that that might not be the best output. And so we look at the degree summary as well to see the trajectory of your grades from freshman to senior year.
Thank you very much. That's all the questions we got on this particular topic. There was one that you had designated before about answering live. Person had asked for the writing sample. Is it something you've written in the past, or it will be something you write specifically for applying to law school?
It is something you write specifically as it relates to taking the law school admissions test. So the LSAT has a writing sample component that you must complete to complete that portion of the LSAT. And it will usually have a writing prompt. And I will say that most committee members, especially in the last 4 years, have relied on that and compared that to the personal statement because it is now electronic and we can read the words that are included in that sample.
Thanks very much. Those are all the questions we have right now. Are we ready to move on to letters of recommendation?
Yes.
I will take it then. Thank you very much. So a couple of things we'd like you all to bear in mind with letters of recommendation. Perhaps first and foremost is admissions committees are not impressed by titles. Too many applicants to law school make this mistake and ask the most, in their mind, esteemed person they possibly can for a letter of recommendation. And in many cases, that person is not very familiar with the applicant. This is a wasted opportunity on the applicant's part. The most compelling letter of recommendation is going to be the one that comes from a person who knows your work product the best. So not the professor who is perhaps nationally famous, but from whom you took a 700-person survey course and they only know you as an exam number, but rather the professor whose office hours you attended, with whom you developed a relationship, who read your papers and knows who you are when they pass you on campus. If, as is the case with many of you, leading to a particular question in the chat, what about letters of recommendation if one hasn't been in school for a while? If one has perhaps relationships either through a civic organization or through their work, would those be accepted? And the answer is absolutely yes, in keeping with the theme of getting a letter from someone who knows you best. If you are currently in school, if you've graduated within the last couple of years, it will seem extremely odd to an admissions committee that you don't get a letter of recommendation from one of your undergraduate professors. So please let that be first and foremost on your list. Some of you are still in school. Many of you have only been removed for a couple of years, and that should be still available to you. Many of you have been out for much longer. You do not know any longer how to get in touch with those people. And so it is therefore, in the context of your entire application, understood that your letter will come from someone other than an undergraduate or graduate school professor. So we are not going to be impressed by a letter from a senator or from a Fortune 500 CEO if they're not the person who knows you really well. If they know you really well and can write that very personal letter of recommendation, that is marvelous. Go ahead and ask them. There's no reason not to. The reason not to ask someone for a letter of recommendation is if they don't know you that well, or if they know you too well. You must not ask for letters. And again, this is another area where you're going to be paying very careful attention to the instructions on your law school applications. New York Law School only requires one letter. We'll read up to 3, and we do not dictate from whom they come, but heed this advice well. Do not ask friends or family members for letters of recommendation. Their objectivity cannot be counted on, and so those letters will essentially be ignored. If your mother or father is a judge and knows you very well because they've had you clerk for them in their courtroom, still, they are not unbiased, and you should not ask them for a letter. So ask those people who do have that sufficient professional remove from you, but who know your work product very well. You'll ask them to write you a good letter of recommendation, give them an out if they don't have sufficient time, or if, regardless of how you feel you're close to them, they may not feel that close to you. Give them an opportunity to say, you know what, perhaps you should ask somebody else, because this is going to be an important element of your law school application. So go ahead, ask, can you write me a great letter of recommendation? This is the time constraint. Provide them with materials to remind them of who you are. Let them know why you're applying to law schools. Perhaps share with them a copy of your personal statement, a copy of whatever it is they graded you on, the major paper you wrote for them, a copy of your transcripts. Give them that whole package. Let them refer to that so that they'll write a letter that feels like it's coming from someone who is very much aware of who you are, what you're capable of, and why you're applying to law school. I see another couple of questions have come up, such as having old letters of recommendation from prior to 2000. No, those would not be applicable. Letters that are not from the last couple of years should not be submitted. That's not to say you can't ask those people to rewrite you a new letter, but an old date is going to look out of place. And again, you'll lose the weight of that letter in the application process. So are there anyone else of my colleagues who's been monitoring the questions and the Q&A? Is there anything else regarding cover letters? Letters of recommendation, different kind of letter, that I should be addressing right now?
Thank you, Dean Coughlin. I think one of the questions sort of globally that people are thinking about is there a point at which it feels too far removed from your education to ask a professor? I know you addressed that if you were in school 20 years ago, that's, you don't have to write a letter. But is there a point at which it feels that the professor may not know you that well anymore?
That's the key. Thank you, Rebecca. Whether or not the professor knows you. I have been, I'll use myself as an example, certainly. Why not? Say I am out of school for 15 years. And had I applied directly when I was an undergraduate, there are 3 professors that I definitely would have asked for a letter. 2 of them I've not been in touch with over those 15 years, and one of them I have. The one that I have been in touch with, I might very well ask them to write a letter because they still know me, they understand me, they know what I've been doing in the intervening time, and I know they're going to write me a great letter. The 2, it is school. You're applying to school. So getting letters from instructors in school, teachers, lecturers, professors, carries a great amount of weight. I might want to balance that out with someone who's become accustomed to my work product more recently, but I wouldn't shy away from asking that professor. The 2 professors with whom I haven't been in touch, I wouldn't bother trying to include them on this very limited number of letters you're allowed to submit, when the answer might very well be, gee, Ed, it's great to hear from you. I think I remember who you are. So you have to use your best judgment. If you have a very specific question about it, then that is a reason to contact an office of admissions and ask them specifically about what that story is. We've got more questions here, but anything else about letters, Rebecca, before we wrap up?
I think one question, and perhaps you can speak to this just based on your experience. The question is, at what point should I begin to ask for letters of recommendation?
Thank you. Today, it's the part of the application that is out of your hands. It is the only part that you'll have no control over the timing of it. The people that you'll choose to ask know you, they love you, they want to do right by you. They will often agonize over these letters, sometimes for months. So at the beginning of that admission cycle, if you are anticipating applying for the fall of 25, you can plant that seed now. It's too early for them to actually produce that letter, but it's not too early to let somebody know that you're going to be applying to law school, that you would love it if they could write you a great letter of recommendation. Could they start thinking about it? Get that commitment from them now, get them starting to think about that now, and then follow the instructions with the applications that you receive. and let that be first on your list of things to check off. I have asked the 1, 2, 3 people from whom I'm requesting letters for that. Now I can get down to the parts of the application that I need to concentrate on, studying for the LSAT, my personal statement, my resume. Anything else? I do see there are other questions up, but they may not have to do with letters of recommendation. So do any of my other colleagues want to address anything else that's in the Q&A?
I would just like to add too, is when you're thinking about who to ask, be strategic too. You know, if there's that one awesome professor that everyone loves and enjoys, think about it. They're going to be being asked by a lot more of your, colleagues for recommendations too. So the early in the process you ask them is also, you better too. You don't want to be asking them late when they were already being told that they're going to be writing letters of recommendation for 20 other classmates. So think about that too. If there's someone you really love, but it's also beloved by all the other classmates, you want to make sure you give them plenty of time to be able to do that letter.
Great advice. Thank you very much. One of you asked about attaining an online graduate degree. That sounds like a context in which the person you'd be asking may not feel like they know you that well, and you may have stronger people to ask. So take that under advisement. You have that, go ahead, feel free to have that conversation with that person. Do you really feel like you could speak to my work product and who I am as a potential law school applicant? That may be the case. Online education can be varied and widely. So it may in fact be a good choice. There's not a cut and dried rule about that. A letter from a mentor, someone asks. That's not a negative thing, but if the mentor isn't able to speak to any work product you've produced, it's not going to be as strong and compelling letter of recommendation as others could be for your admissions committee. If a letter of recommendation from a parent whose child you used to tutor be appropriate, if not necessarily inappropriate, but again, you're treading into that this person doesn't know your work product. They only know you as perhaps a strong worker. And will an admissions committee think that that relationship is too personal and too close? You may be able to get a stronger one from someone else. Then questions start to vary. One person asks, if I'm a straight A student, but standardized test taking isn't my strongest suit, would this be a potential barrier of being accepted into law schools? I can keep going, but I don't want to hog the floor if any of my colleagues would like to respond to this. So I will chime in as no one else is unmuted. No, it is not potentially a barrier. All the elements of your application will be reviewed in a holistic manner. You'll hear that phrase often. It's supposed to explain to you that every element, your application, your letters of recommendation, your personal statement, your resume, your LSAT scores, and your transcripts will all be taken into account when assessing by each committee whether or not they feel you are prepared to do strong work once you get to law school. Most applicants are stronger in one area than they are in another. So if you are strong in other areas, it can potentially overcome being less strong in one particular area. There's always going to be a bottom GPA. There's always going to be a bottom LSAT score. Bear in mind that your first hurdle is convincing an admissions committee that you're prepared to do great work once you get to law school. The second hurdle is you're competing against thousands of other applicants for a finite number of seats. And so your score may not be strong enough, but it shouldn't necessarily be an automatic bar to your applying to law school. If someone doesn't waive the right to see a recommendation, does it hurt your application? It might. It's not going to help. Go ahead and waive. Everybody waives. You don't want to stand out as the person who won't waive. Go ahead and waive your right. And we've run out of questions. And they were all fantastic. Thank you very much. Extremely useful. Is there anything, Dean Estrada, we want to cover before we let everybody get back to their afternoons?
Yeah, so again, 1 hour is not enough time to really take a deeper look at every component. So we certainly invite you to join us for the other segments to which you should have the calendar invite to. I will share this. The earlier you apply, the better it is on your behalf for two reasons. First, scholarship opportunities are on a first come, first serve basis. Two, the admissions committee are generally excited to read applications between September and January, February. And that's just the nature of the game. But I will say this with a caveat. Only apply if your application is at its best. So even though you feel like October would be an ideal time to apply, but you could have probably waited 2 more months to boost up your GPA for the fall semester, I would wait until those those grades are in and apply in December or January when those fall grades are available, because your chances of getting in may be stronger. I will also share that, and as I mentioned earlier, there is not a one-size-fits-all model when you're applying to law school. It is imperative that you follow instructions. Oftentimes than not, we see many applicants who just are careless and are not following instructions. And for some committee members, that is a big red flag. We do not at New York Law School have an interview process. We don't accept any invitations for an interview. So we are really going off the application materials that you've submitted. So you want to make sure it is error-free. You've answered all of the questions, you've followed directions, it is concise, and your best application to date. So with that, I'm going to invite my colleagues for any other last remarks before we close off and well for the rest of the afternoon.
Thank you, Dean Estrada. I think I'm done for the day. Either Brian or Rebecca?
I would just add, if you have any follow-up questions after today, you don't want to wait to the next sessions, please reach out to us, call us, email us, take a tour on campus if you're in the area. We'd love to see you that way too. So, please do that and look for upcoming emails regarding our programs ahead.
Yes, we will also be this fall in many places around the country. So definitely keep an eye out on our website. There's a calendar where it says NYLS at, and it tells you exactly where we are. So if you're in one of those states, we would love to see you there. Thank you, guys.
And as my final thought, as you are starting this next chapter, please stay away from Reddit and make sure that you utilize this as your resource. Reddit has a lot of misinformation. So please just reach out, call us, study the website, and we will be there every step of the way. We wish you well, take care, and we'll see you at our next segment. Take care, everyone.